So thank you for this opportunity, and it's really awesome that accessibility was talked about earlier today. So see if I can, yeah, I'm gonna go back. So a little brief about myself, how I got here, and this is in cybersecurity. We're going on 27. As I learned about my job in the military on a laser disc, and I wanted to be like the actor Tom Arnold in a movie um, called True Lies that was popular in the 90s. Basically, the guy in the van supporting um, the spies and the security professionals. Fast forward, I got the great opportunity to come to Deque Systems Inc., which does digital accessibility services and tooling to make things digitally accessible. And it posed a different strategy that I would need to apply to my security program at the organization. Is I need to make sure that for the people that I'm securing, that the solutions are accessible to them for them to use, and then for the professionals that I hire on my team, that the tooling is accessible for them to use. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's presentation. I'm going to go forward. Um, this is just a brief overview of the agenda. This basically what I've talked about today is I'm going to tell you about the problem, how we can apply solutions, call to actions, and then some useful takeaways that we can share. And then if we have time for questions, we will get to that. So what is accessibility and digital accessibility? So in my words, it's also on the screen, but in my words, accessibility is allowing everyone an equal right to access something. That's a pretty high overview. And then that's just in the general world. And then digital accessibility is for the digital world. So apply that to digital environments. When we're building our web application and mobile application solutions, we need to be thinking how can these be accessed also by people with disabilities and also people that use assistive technologies like screen readers. One term you will see in this presentation is the term A11Y, and A11Y is represents accessibility, and it's a short version of that so that it can be said and comprehended quicker, and also in a screen reader can be identified easier. So official disabilities according to the CDC are the following: visual, auditory, motor, speech, and cognitive. And I believe those are the ones that most people identify with when we're referring to disabilities. However, there are different versions of disabilities. Most of those that were previously listed are generally permanent disabilities, but you also have temporary and situational or sitch based disabilities. If you're sick, if it's very noisy, you're not able to hear the presenter because there's so much talking going on in the session. That would be a situational. So moving along. Some other situational disabilities, some that people might have encountered actually in your day-to-day is no speakers, missing a plugin, the web browser is outdated, so you can't actually use the site. English is a second language for you, noisy environment, and others. So the security risks without accessibility. So when I looked at my program, when I came here, and then looking back at the programs that I've been a part of before, I started looking at them from an accessibility standpoint. And it affects all parts of the information or cybersecurity program at organizations. So your policies, the training, any type of communication that you have about your program, any of the solutions that fall under the security team's purview for the ones that you're protecting and for the ones that are on your team, those solutions should be accessible. And this isn't a small number. People with disabilities make up about 15 to 35% of the world's workforce, depending on the country that you're discussing. So um, this is not just a small niche amount of people. And the reason why there is a black uh, image on the screen, and you will be able to access the slides on the website after the presentation, and you'll be able to see it for yourself, is I provided in live versions of this, I'm able to show the alt text of that image. So what I did is I provided a message to people that are using assistive technologies to consume this slide that you are not able to see. And it's just telling them that I am using this as an example to try to give you an idea of how it is navigating when things are not accessible. A lot of organizations buy security awareness training through vendors. And a lot of the vendors are already making their training accessible, but there is still room for improvement. A lot of programs have a decent amount of the training is accessible. However, the specialized training specific to PCI or other control sets aren't necessarily made accessible. But in fairness, accessibility is a process, and those companies are working on that. But what happens is if the security awareness program that you're using, or if you're doing a summit on site or virtually, if it's not accessible, then not everyone can participate. And I think um, a core value I believe that we all have is that we want to protect everyone. And as soon as I found out that I wasn't necessarily doing that at all of my locations, that's why I became very passionate about this. Is I want to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Um, without accessibility, it leaves your program open to cybersecurity incidents. I will give a quick example. If someone is blind and they're unable to properly authenticate to your website because the website wasn't designed for the screen reader to be able to identify where the login is, they will have to ask someone to help them log in. If someone is in person, then they're actually getting their login and putting it into the laptop or the phone. But because we're in a modern world, this has also been being done over the internet. So there's an awesome application that helps people that need help with site, and it's called Be My Eyes. However, in this situation, if someone's not able to log in and they don't have someone in their local area, they're using this phone app and pointing it at your organization's login screen for your HR data, your password manager, whatever may have you. Depend if it's not accessible, that's one of the workarounds. And there are no GRC tools that can detect this. So this is an issue that is actually happening at most organizations in the world today. Authentication. Most people have probably run into CAPTCHA at one point in their life. I personally don't believe the CAPTCHA is security. I think it is security through obscurity. And the issue that happens when it deals with accessibility is on multiple levels. There's not always a non-visual alternative So if that's not there, then someone that is utilizing a screen reader wouldn't be able to even get through the CAPTCHA. Then it's broken. Um, if someone doesn't know how to add two numbers together and get a sum, does that mean that they don't deserve to be secure? Um, the images, if they're based on something that has no cultural relevance to them, they don't even know what the pictures are on the screen, but they're asked to know what it is to be able to authenticate. It's not really accessible. Also, with color blindness, if you're not able to see the certain colors that are done with CAPTCHA, and if they can't identify the second picture on the screen is a login screen that I found where the the ID of what the elements are is baked into the element, and so there's no if a screen reader was to read that login, they wouldn't really know how what those boxes are. So then someone would have to help that individual log into that site. So I've alluded to this before, and most solutions out there today are not accessible. Not all of them. There are some that are already working on accessibility, and I am working to try to build a list of those organizations and solutions. But most of the tools aren't accessible, and it's not just for those that you're trying to protect in your organization. Your cybersecurity teams um, won't truly be diverse until you ensure that your solutions are accessible to allow people with disabilities to participate in those roles. Also, digital accessibility is mandated by law in most countries, in many countries, and not most, but many countries, definitely in the U.S. and in the U.K. and in Europe. And especially when you're selling to the federal government or in education, those solutions need to be accessible. So I kind of brought it up in the last slide. I would say in the last 5 years, um, the cybersecurity field has become more diverse because of efforts like SANS summits on neurodiversity and other summits that are championing these initiatives. Uh, However, I think for the most part, people with disabilities are overlooked in cybersecurity. I don't believe that's intentional. I just think that it is a byproduct, and that is creating a barrier to get in. So there's an individual that I met. Her name is Emily Keel. She was trying to become. She is really into networking, and she wanted to become a digital forensics expert. She tried to take a digital forensics course in college, and none of the tools needed to be able to do digital forensics were accessible to her because she's blind, and she ended up just doing an accessibility test on all of the different tools that were available to her at the time, which was about 2021, I believe. So we're keeping people out of our industry because the digital solutions aren't accessible. So how can we fix this? So apply accessibility to your information security program. Make sure that in the policies and in the communication that you use, if you're using any images or tables, that you're making sure that those are accessible and provide alternate text for people who are utilizing screen readers that can identify that. When you're testing the solutions during your POCs, bring in people with disabilities to be a part of the user testing, because if not, you're not taking care of that user set within your security culture. And then one thing that security teams can do is when you're doing your security assessment of your third-party vendor requests and your annuals, check out on the accessibility of the solution. And you can look at the WCAG guidelines, or you can contact me and I can help point you in the direction. But even if a lot of times I think people, even when they're purchasing a security awareness training through a vendor, I think it's often that presentations are used to do internal summits or conferences or just awareness training. Make sure those presentations are accessible so that the people that you're trying to get that information to can actually consume it. And I'm going back one slide. Microsoft Office has accessibility testing within the Office suite for the different Office tools that you use. That's just a little tip for you. So the security awareness program, if your awareness program or culture is not truly inclusive, then you're not securing everyone. You're leaving people out of the program. So I provided a quote from James McKay, the COO of Meta Compliance, on the screen. For effective security awareness training, accessibility must be considered, and courses designed to be inclusive and accessible. So one awesome thing I think that is happening in cybersecurity training over the last 10 years is gamification is definitely, and interactive training is definitely happening. Problem is when you do that, oftentimes the virtual environments don't also have sound cards. So you have to make sure that the training that you're purchasing is accessible so everybody can participate. A lot of videos are done, but if there's no audio descriptions, I mean, I've seen tests for security awareness directly ask a question about what was happening in the video, but if you can't see the video and understand discern what happened, then you're not really able to answer that question properly. So we just have to make sure that we're designing the security awareness program and culture to be accessible to include everyone. Websites and mobile application authentication to be accessible. There's some different points on the slide, but for the most part, I would say passkeys are the most accessible. But again, with accessibility, it's never 100% because passkeys rely on biometrics. And if you don't have the biometrics to give, then you need another way of authenticating. So a good point is having a variety of ways to authenticate, not just one way, because people have different needs to be able to authenticate, and you can't just, there's not a one size fits all. And I need to add it to this presentation, there was a great presentation that happened at RSA. This young lady named Deque is working on some AI solutions for authentication to assist, almost like a authentication concierge, so that someone can utilize the AI to authenticate in the ways that they can. Going on to the next slide. So the solutions to protect people and to be used by cybersecurity practitioners need to be designed and developed to be digitally accessible. As much as we shift security left, we need to be shifting accessibility left to make sure that these solutions are accessible. Utilize feedback loops. Utilize the standards that are developed by WCAG, and tap into the market. I mean, there's $490 billion of the U.S. Working age adults with disabilities that you're missing out on from even in a corporate setting. If you're organizations and private and public are starting to push for things to be accessible, and it's only a matter of time when it's going to be demanded. How can we ensure that cybersecurity um, includes accessibility as a part of DEI? Making sure that the tooling, again, is designed and developed to be accessible. And I think if we partner, if these organizations do this and partner with higher education programs, one, they're taking the advantage of the fact that for the most part, public education systems have to purchase accessible software if it is out there, so that people can get through the university programs and non-university programs. So get into that loyalty base and make your tooling accessible and get it to not just the universities, but also the cybersecurity training organizations. And also involve people with disabilities in your user testing. I think that is very important. Call to action. Everyone here can help and influence change. The users, accessibility teams, DEI teams, and the CISOs, CIOs, and CTOs, everyone has a part in this. I'm going to go ahead and just go through these useful takeaways pretty quick. So if we can go ahead and try to get some questions. So I've created a LinkedIn group that is trying to advocate for accessible and inclusive security. If you'd like to join that group, it's free, and it's no salesy stuff. It is sharing information around accessibility, different presentations like this, podcasts, articles, and research around accessibility. Because when I was trying to find it, it was hard to find other people and information. So I created both of these lists, and they're listed on that group site as well. There are other advocates like me that are talking about this, and I want to get the word out so that more people can connect with them and learn from them as well. And there are different podcasts and conferences and research papers that all these awesome people are doing, and as well as myself. And there's a link that will be provided there in the slide that you can access that information, and I'm constantly updating it. There's an open source game called Accessibility Maze. You can utilize this game to try to immerse yourself and try to understand when things are not accessible, how you can navigate into the game. And you could actually make a version of it yourself because it's on GitHub, so you could fork it. There's a repo on GitHub called Ally Courses. It's a good list of different paid and free courses around accessibility. AlleyCat is a really good list of different information about digital accessibility, from the basic to the very expert and niche. And I want to thank everybody for this opportunity, and I will take some questions.